Can dogs feel jealous? You reach over to pet another dog, and within seconds, your own dog is wedging itself between you and the stranger. Maybe it nudges your hand away. Maybe it lets out a low grumble you've never heard before. Most people laugh it off, call their dog dramatic, and move on. But researchers who study this exact moment have found something that might change the way you see it completely. Because what looks like a simple habit may actually be one of the clearest windows we have into your dog's emotional world. Why this behavior matters. For most of the 20th century, scientists were hesitant to even use the word jealousy when talking about animals. Jealousy was considered a complex emotion, one that required self-awareness, social comparison, and an understanding of relationships. Dogs, the thinking went, simply weren't equipped for that kind of inner life. This mattered more than it seems, because it shaped how owners interpreted their dogs for generations. When a dog pushed between two people, or stiffened when a new puppy arrived, owners were often told the behavior meant nothing, or worse, that it was a sign of poor training. That gap between what people were observing at home and what science was willing to say created a lot of confusion, and a lot of dogs getting blamed for feelings no one believed they were allowed to have. That's beginning to change. Researchers have started designing experiments specifically to test whether jealousy-like behavior in dogs is real, measurable, and consistent, not just a story owners tell themselves. What they found didn't just answer the question. It reshaped how many scientists think about the emotional lives of dogs altogether. The science. In 2014, psychologists Christine Harris and Caroline Prouvost designed a study modeled on classic human infant jealousy research. They had dog owners ignore their own pet while giving attention to 3 different objects: a realistic stuffed dog that whined and wagged its tail, a jack-o'-lantern pail, and a children's book. The dog's reactions were filmed and coded for specific behaviors: pushing, snapping, getting between the owner and the object, and trying to break up the interaction. The results were striking. Dogs were far more likely to push, snap at, or try to interrupt contact when their owner interacted with the animated stuffed dog than with the pail or the book. Roughly a third of the dogs even snapped at the fake dog. That pattern, reacting more strongly to a social rival than to an inanimate object, is exactly the kind of selective, targeted response researchers look for when testing jealousy in human infants. But here's where it gets more interesting. This doesn't necessarily mean dogs experience jealousy the exact same way humans do, with the layered thoughts and self-reflection involved in adult human jealousy. What the study captured is better described as a primordial form of jealousy, a more basic emotional system built around protecting an important social bond from being replaced. Evolutionary biologists suspect this system likely predates humans altogether, since even much simpler-brained animals compete for access to caregivers and resources. This connects to something deeper in canine evolution. Dogs are one of the most socially attuned species on the planet, shaped by roughly 15,000 years of living alongside humans. That long history of domestication selected for dogs who were highly sensitive to human attention, tone, and social cues, the same sensitivity that may make them acutely aware when that attention shifts somewhere else. What your dog is really communicating. When your dog pushes between you and another dog, or leans hard into your lap the moment you start petting a different animal, it isn't randomly seeking touch. It's responding to a perceived threat to a resource it depends on: your attention. For a dog, access to you isn't just emotionally important. Historically, it has practical stakes attached to it too. Attention has long been linked to food, safety, and social standing within a group. So when that attention appears to move toward a rival, a dog's response isn't performative. It's a fast, instinctive attempt to reclaim something that matters. Context changes what this looks like enormously. A dog nudging your hand away from a new puppy might be signaling insecurity about its place in the household. A dog stiffening when you hug your partner might be responding less to jealousy and more to unfamiliar body language it hasn't learned to interpret yet. Arms wrapped around another person can look, to a dog, like restraint or tension. And a dog that whines when you're on a video call may simply be confused about where your attention has gone, since there's no visible person in the room to explain it. This is where owners often misread the signal. The behavior gets lumped into one category, jealous, when in reality a dog might be feeling insecurity, confusion, overstimulation, or a simple desire for more physical contact. Reading the full context, not just the single moment, is what separates an accurate read from a guess. Common myths. Myth: my dog does this out of spite. Spite requires anticipating a future emotional reaction in another individual and choosing to cause it, a level of forward planning. Current evidence doesn't support in dogs. What looks like spite is almost always a more immediate emotional or associative response happening in the moment. Myth: dogs feel guilty when they misbehave, so they must feel jealousy the same way we do. This is a common mix-up. Studies on the so-called guilty look have found that dogs display that posture in response to an owner's scolding tone, not necessarily because they understand they did something wrong. Jealousy-like behavior is different. The Harris and Prouvost study specifically ruled out simple attention-seeking by showing dogs reacted more to a rival than to a non-social object, which is stronger evidence than the guilt research provides. Still, researchers are careful not to claim dogs experience jealousy with full human-level self-awareness. The honest answer sits between dogs feel nothing and dogs feel exactly what we feel. Myth: dominance explains this behavior. Older dominance-based theories tried to explain almost every unwanted behavior as a bid for social rank. Most contemporary behaviorists have moved away from this framework for everyday behaviors like this one, since jealousy-type responses appear even in securely bonded, well-adjusted dogs and seem tied to attachment, not hierarchy. What you should do: watch for the situations that reliably trigger the behavior, a new pet, a baby, a partner, even a phone, and notice whether your dog's response is pushy and confident or tense and avoidant. That distinction matters because it points to different underlying causes. Avoid punishing the behavior in the moment. Scolding a dog for pushing into a hug or nudging a stuffed animal doesn't address the underlying feeling of losing access to you. It just adds a layer of confusion or anxiety on top of it. Instead, build in moments of inclusion rather than exclusion. If you're greeting another dog or holding a new baby, giving your dog a small job nearby, a chew, a settle cue on a mat, a calm hello, teaches them that your attention shifting doesn't mean it disappears. Reward calm behavior near the rival generously and consistently. Over time, this reshapes the association from threat to routine. If the behavior escalates into growling, snapping, or resource guarding around people, it's worth involving a certified trainer or veterinary behaviorist, since those responses can sometimes reflect anxiety that benefits from a more structured plan. Surprising facts and real-life examples. Wolves, dogs' closest wild relatives, show similarly selective protective behavior around pack members and food, suggesting this isn't a quirk invented by domestication. It may be an ancient social tool for maintaining bonds within a group. In the original study, dogs snapped at the animated stuffed dog nearly 4 times more often than at the jack-o'-lantern pail, even though both were unfamiliar objects introduced the same way. The difference wasn't the novelty of the object, it was that one of them looked like a social rival, and the other didn't. Interestingly, later research on cats found some parallel jealousy-like responses, suggesting this isn't a dog-specific trait but something that may run through species with strong bonds to a caregiver. And in multi-dog households, owners often report that jealousy-type behavior fades as dogs settle into a stable, predictable routine together, supporting the idea that much of this response is about uncertainty over access to attention, not a fixed personality trait. Final takeaway. What looks like a small, almost comical moment, a dog wedging itself into a hug or growling at a stuffed toy, turns out to be a glimpse into something much older and more complex than most people assume. An emotional system built to protect the bonds a dog depends on most. The more precisely we can read these moments, the less mysterious our dogs become. And the less mysterious they become, the easier it is to respond with the reassurance they're actually asking for.